The Pentagon says it carried out airstrikes against Iran-backed militia groups in the border region between Iraq and Syria on Sunday. The strikes come as Iran has been holding talks with world powers, including the U.S., about reviving a 2015 nuclear deal, which lifted sanctions against Iran in exchange for stopping some nuclear work. Reuters reports that the U.S. has carried out airstrikes against the Iran-backed militia groups in the Iraq-Syria border region on Sunday, June 27th. The Pentagon said the strikes hit operational and weapons storage facilities in response to drone attacks on U.S. forces. About 2,500 U.S. troops are based in the country as part of an intentional coalition fighting the Islamic State jihadist group. U.S. forces based in Iraq have been targeted several times in recent months by drone attacks. Iran has denied any involvement. According to the Pentagon, the defensive precision airstrikes hit 2 targets in Syria and 1 in Iraq. It said several Iran-backed militia groups, including Kataib Hezbollah and Kataib Sayyid al-Shuhada, used these facilities. A monitoring group reported that 5 militia fighters were killed and several more fighters were wounded in Syria, in what it called an attack by U.S. warplanes. Iran's influence over Iraq's internal affairs has grown steadily since the U.S.-led invasion that toppled Saddam Hussein in 2003. This is the second round of airstrikes that President Biden has authorized against Iran-backed militias since taking office in January. Iran's top covert operations commander and arguably the second most powerful man in the country was killed by a U.S. drone strike in Baghdad last week. General Qassem Suleimani had served Iran as a major planner of military and intelligence operations for 20 years. General Qassem Soleimani, head of Iran's Expeditionary Quds Force, was killed early Friday by a U.S. drone that fired missiles into his convoy near Baghdad International Airport. The U.S. military has confirmed that it carried out the attack. The Times of Israel reports that a MQ-9 Reaper drone fired 4 missiles into 2 cars and destroyed the vehicles on the airport's access road. Citing local media sources, the paper reports that the blast tore Soleimani apart, and the general was later identified by the ring he wore on his hand. The strike killed Soleimani, his son-in-law, and 5 Iranian Revolutionary Guard members. According to the New York Times, several Tehran-backed Iraqi militia leaders in the convoy were also killed. The Times of Israel reported 10 fatalities for the airstrike. The Washington Examiner reports that the MQ-9 drone was favored for its quiet propellers and loitering capabilities. Citing debris analysis by independent observers, Forbes reports that the missiles utilized could be the JAGM, a missile type that adds advanced sensors to the Hellfire missile. The U.S. moved to designate Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps and its Quds Force a terrorist organization last year. U.S. President Donald Trump said in a statement that the IRGC actively participates in, finances, and promotes terrorism as a tool of statecraft. 2 ships of the Iranian Navy have rounded the southern tip of Africa, becoming the first Iranian Navy ships to ever enter the Atlantic Ocean. This comes just days after Iran's largest Navy ship caught fire and sank. It appears that the 2 Iranian ships are heading for Venezuela, which would have significant geopolitical ramifications. Here are the details. The Drive reports that 2 ships of the Iranian Navy have reportedly rounded South Africa's Cape of Good Hope and appear to be heading into the Atlantic Ocean. The 2 ships are the frigate Sahand and the Makran, a converted tanker that looks like it's designed to be a mobile base. This latest news comes 2 days after the Karg, one of Iran's largest and most important naval ships, sank after suffering a major fire, the causes of which remain unclear. This would be the first time Iranian naval vessels have operated in the Atlantic, and previous reports have indicated that their final destination is in Venezuela, where they might offload a shipment of weapons. While it is still unclear if the ships are carrying any weapons, satellite imagery suggests the Makran is carrying a number of small, fast-attack boats that Iran has used to harass U.S. naval ships in the Persian Gulf. If Iranian Navy vessels gain the ability to operate in the Atlantic, analysts say it would be a significant step forward for Iran, which has tried and failed to do so in the past. The Pentagon says the delivery of Iranian weapons to Venezuela would be a provocative act and a threat to America's partners in the Western Hemisphere. The Pentagon said, "We would reserve the right to take appropriate measures in concert with our partners to deter the delivery or transit of such weapons."
Tehran is taking another step away from a 2015 nuclear accord by planning new nuclear centrifuges for enriching uranium. According to Reuters, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani announced that Iran will begin developing centrifuges to speed up the enrichment of uranium used to fuel power plants. According to the BBC, low-enriched uranium with a concentration of 3 to 5% is used to produce fuel for nuclear plants. Weapons-grade uranium is at least 90% enriched. Reuters reports that under the 2015 nuclear deal with world powers, Iran kept limited quantities of first-generation centrifuges at 2 nuclear power plants. A more advanced centrifuge would allow for faster uranium enrichment for a potential nuclear bomb. After the U.S. withdrew from the deal last year, it imposed sanctions against Iran that slashed the country's crude oil sales by about 80%. In response, Iran violated 2 key nuclear commitments in July, breaching the 600-pound limit on its low-enriched uranium stockpile and exceeding the cap on the purity of its uranium stocks. Rouhani had threatened to take further measures by September 5th unless France and the other European signatories of the nuclear accord did more to protect Iran from the sanctions. France had proposed a $15 billion credit line to finance Tehran's oil sales if it would return to compliance with the 2015 deal. But the plan was rebuffed by the U.S., which has refused to ease economic sanctions and even imposed new ones to target Iranian oil smuggling. According to state TV, Rouhani said the new measures will be peaceful under surveillance of the UN nuclear watchdog. It is also reversible if the European signatories keep their promises.
Iran's military on Saturday admitted that its air defense system had shot down Ukraine's Flight 752 by mistake. Citing Iranian official statements, the New York Times said the passenger jet had been misidentified as a U.S. cruise missile. After days of denial, the government's confession sparked protests on the streets over the regime's fatal mistake. The New York Times reports that the Tor is a mobile system carrying 8 missiles that can be operated without input from other air defense infrastructure. Citing defense analyst Steven Zaloga, Bloomberg reports that the missile's guidance system is unable to distinguish cruise missiles from military aircraft or civilian airplanes. Citing Flight Radar 24, Bloomberg reports that the Boeing 737 made a slight right turn 2 minutes after its takeoff from Tehran International Airport, which was normal. The plane was clearly transmitting its identity and position until it climbed to about 7,900 feet of altitude, presumably because it was hit by missile fire. The plane plunged into a field in between the cities of Parand and Sharyar. All 196 passengers and crew were killed. Due to the Tor's indiscriminate guidance system, most nations do not operate the weapon without connecting it into a command structure. Bloomberg reports that according to Zaloga, SA-15 operators are not supposed to fire without authorization. Iran showcased its growing arsenal of weapons over the weekend, just weeks after deadly anti-government protests rocked the nation. During rallies commemorating the 39th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution, Iranian leaders unveiled 2 new homemade missiles, the Ghadr and Fajr 5. The Ghadr is a nuclear-capable medium-range ballistic missile, which experts say bears striking similarities to North Korean technology. It can be launched from mobile platforms and is equipped with a radar-evading system. It's also capable of striking Israel when fired from within Iran. The Fajr 5, meanwhile, is a long-range artillery rocket fueled by solid propulsion that is being used by Iran-backed anti-Israel groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. The Islamic nation currently holds the region's largest arsenal of ballistic missiles and continues to develop them despite international criticism, most notably from U.S. President Donald Trump.
For more news animations and explainers, hit the subscribe and bell button to join the TomoNews family. Thanks for watching.